Hello, welcome to this last edition of our Living Income Guaranteed Hangouts. And today we are, of course, giving closure to this phase, and not so much of a closure, but I would say also an opening up of our future projects as well. And because we've been here on air for over 3 years now, we will have a example of what we've done, which is sharing what has transpired over these 3 years, all the things that we've learned, all the people that we've worked with, that we've met, the viewers as well. So this is, of course, as always, a session where there will be comments and questions that you can place upon what we will be sharing today. And to finalize this phase in the Equal Life Foundation as well and our projects, we have part of our team here today. Joining me is Joana Jesus from the UK, who is part of Politics of Self team, as well as having been guest in one of the, quite a few Hangouts as well with us throughout the year. So Joana, welcome to the Hangout.
Hi Marlen, hi everyone.
And we also have in South Africa, Cerise Poolman, part of the Equal Life Foundation. She has also presented the Equal Life Foundation in a previous Hangout, as well as being a guest in the past as well. So welcome, Cerise.
Hi Marlen, hi everyone, thanks for having me.
And Joku, who is also part of the Politics of Self team, as well as having been a regular guest in the Hangouts. And he's in South Africa now, so welcome, Joe. Thanks for
Hello, everybody.
So for everyone, this is more of us sharing the decision that has come to this day, which is something that we have been discussing as a team. What we are witnessing today is the Swiss referendum on basic income, and even if it seems that it won't be passed as a policy there, we are definitely glad that basic income throughout these years have gained great momentum, and it's now being considered by governments. We've been talking about the various experiments that will take place in Finland, the Netherlands, and Canada possibly. There's talks about it in France, even Mexico here, my country. So we have seen today's referendum wasn't positively favoring basic income. We will definitely keep hearing it in the mainstream media, and we are definitely glad about it, because for us that is a stepping stone, a first consideration that has reached, I would say, mainstream already. We can read about it in mainstream media. It is something that most people are becoming aware of, and we consider that part of the aim of us creating a proposal as a living income was precisely to keep this idea being heard of, making people aware of the possibilities for the various reasons that we've discussed over these years, which is essentially to dignify people's livelihood to the best of our ability, which is why we called it a living income. And we created a proposal that was precisely shaped in order to give a little bit of a step further into what is currently known as the Basic Income Plan, Basic Income Guaranteed. And that is and will remain a proposal available for everyone to check out, to consider. And ourselves, throughout the years, we have continued to investigate what would be the solutions, the ways forward. How can we continue expanding as well, now that basic income is something well talked about? And we kind of felt that our job in that regard, in bringing it through the airwaves, so to speak, has been completed to a certain extent. So I'd like to open up also the discussion with some of my guests here and co-workers and teams and part of the Equal Life Foundation in relation to this point. First of all, we will discuss the perspective on this Swiss basic income. So Joe, if you'd like to share a bit of what your thoughts on this is and what it represents also for our movement.
Right. So By now, I'm sure that those of us that have been following the movement of basic income have heard about the news and the referendum and most likely not passing. Now, when I looked at the policy, the actual wording of it, it's not too big of a surprise that it didn't pass through the legislature there because there were some vagaries in the wording and it's not very clear as to the amounts to be distributed. But what it was a popular suggestion from the people that got put onto the table for voting without any political support. So this is an agenda put forward by the people, for the people, without having any political backing at all. What is this telling us? This is telling us that this has reached a psychological breaking point where we're realizing we don't necessarily need to wait for the government to turn around. We don't necessarily need to wait for the right political leaders or the right political organizations or parties to adopt. We can be the first adopters here. And I think that is the most important thing to take away from this. It's not whether or not we passed the legislation, it's that people are moving the point themselves. And that is extremely encouraging, given the fact that this is the first time it's come up. To close this point out, my last perspective on this would be that media coverage is going to tend to spin it such that, oh, the Swiss failed to pass, or the Swiss rejected the basic income, when that's not really the story. There were a lot of technical issues, there were a lot of vagaries that weren't handled correctly, but what is, again, important here is that this has set a milestone. No longer can people say this is a non-issue, or that there's not enough popular support. The fact that this came on without a political backing is immense, and something that we can be happy about.
Yeah, this is something that has culminated today into this mass approach to basic income, because one cannot really ignore nowadays the name, what it is about in newspapers, in mainstream media. And in relation to this, I'd like to hear also Joana's perspective on this regard. Joana, would you like to add?
Yeah. So, well, even just some of the questions that kind of rose inside of each one of us in relation to the proposal. And one of the questions is, what would you do, or who would you be if money wasn't an issue, or you were taken care of? So that is kind of triggering some reactions, but also some inner reflection as to how we accepted our lives to be limited by the amount of money we have, and to accept that as the only reality we can create as humanity. So, and exactly how Joe said, it is a milestone as a society, but also from an individual level, of you realizing that together as a group of people with the will, there's going to be a direction and there's a movement that creates, and then eventually new solutions will come forth based on these milestones that we are creating. But for me, that was kind of the when we first initially started with, even initially with the basic income grant in Namibia, and then the whole process, it was all about me questioning who would I be, what would I do, and how this also changes my decisions, and then not accepting the current system as we live in, where we have to do certain jobs to pay for a living, then not accepting that as the only solution for ourselves. So it's a good opportunity for us to reflect on that.
And we brought up forth the Living Income proposal, which, as I mentioned, it is created by us as Equal Life Foundation, people that have worked with for, I would say, close to 10 years in investigating the world system, especially money systems, politics, and looking ways in which we can place forward these ideas and solutions that more people could listen to and approach with ease, and also with what we have done also throughout all of these hangouts, bringing many guests from many basic income movements, networks, associations, private, public, and all of it with the intent to precisely broaden our perspective, our possibilities for solutions, for change in the context of economics and politics. Cerise, I'd like you to also share in relation to our next step and what will come up as the new project that we will be announcing, of course. And this is something that many people might not grasp in relation to what motivates us to, for example, bring forth this proposal as Living Income, and who we are or what our intent is and purpose as Equal Life Foundation. So can you share a bit on that, and then the introduction to our approach in time to come?
Okay, well, the essence of who we are is we are a group of people who have come to the realization and recognize that the only way that we're going to make the world a better place is by coming together and working together, but also, and possibly more importantly, we need to recognize how we have been active participants in creating the world the way that it is now. So the way that you could say it is that the world is a reflection of who we are as humanity. So we have over time come to realize this in conjunction with the principles that we stand by, which is principles like do unto others as you would want to be done unto yourself, love thy brother, or love thy neighbor as thy brother, and essentially, or any principle that values and honors life, and that brings forward the best potential of life. And when I say life, I mean not only people, I'm talking about all life that we are sharing this planet with. So we as humanity are the custodians of life because we have placed ourselves in a position of being empowered to make changes, to have significant effects on the world and on the beings in the world. So with that custodianship position comes a great responsibility, which so far we have not lived up to. So at the moment, our focus moving forward with Equal Life Foundation is going to be showing who we are as each individual being is actually in part a reflection of the world around us and vice versa. So we're going to be focusing on showing how the natures of ourselves, the nature of our thoughts, the way that we live, the way that we participate in the world actually reflects back into creating the world and all the different systems in the world as it is now. When I say world, I mean that human system that we've created, not the earth and nature.
Joe, would you like to add?
Well, that was pretty much perfect in terms of the mission statement and the goals of the Equal Life Foundation. To add my own perspective on it, I would say that this was also very much the spirit of the politics of self, the intent being to, look at the world outside, question the politics, question the propaganda, question everything, but do so from a starting point of bringing it back to ourselves, realizing that we are the ones that are informing the rest of the world what we're accepting and what we're not. So this is, again, very much in the spirit of the work that we've been doing together as the Equal Life Foundation, the project of politics of self, and going forward, it's going to be a much more focused direction as we hone in on this aspect of, okay, we know about the world and how we can't really trust the mainstream media and things like that, but it's not enough to have all of that if we're not changing who we are as we are becoming aware of these things. It's not enough that we know. It's time for us to be examples of change, and it's our intent to show how powerful that is and how easy it in fact can be, just starting with ourselves. And I'm sure that in time to come we'll be able to show our viewers how each one can participate in this shift towards personal responsibility and change.
One thing that we noticed, and throughout the hangouts and the people that came to discuss solutions, is that many times the change feels out there, meaning only through an organization, through certain activism, or only through belonging to a political party. And many people that or are not genuinely interested in politics or economics and still have resistances about it would be felt out of the loop of changing, of creating solutions. And what we will be also emphasizing on is how this point of world change can be taken on as an individual, no matter where or what you do, no matter where you are in the world, because world change, as Cerise was also explaining, it implies considering the self and looking at ourselves in how we live, how we participate, how we fuel the current system. What have we missed out when we only tend to point fingers and blame the outside world and not looking back at ourselves? And we saw that there was a need to kind of expand ourselves, because in these hangouts we have even gone to discussions about health and education, media, breaking news, things like that, even if they aren't related to living income. And you as a viewer probably saw that. So we kind of felt that this name and this project in itself, it was a bit restrictive, and we wanted to expand on. So Joana, I also know that you'd like to share your perspective as well on this niche or this missing link, missing space in relation to what is portrayed in media and world solutions or world change. Can you give your perspective?
Yeah. Well, it was actually even the starting point of politics of self, is to think of anything that is outside in the world is a mirror of who we are, of what we accept, the thoughts we have, and everything starts with us. I mean, everything meaning our own lives, where we live, everything we have around us is a reflection of us as a species, but also as humanity and as individuals. And sometimes there's this tendency of wanting to change lots of things outside and then feeling powerless because you can't simply go there and change everything. So we forget about changing the things that we can change, like the things that are immediately here, and then eventually we can expand and go into a larger scale and bring those principles with us, which is exactly how it started with Living Income, and now we're targeting other areas that we see the responsibility. And for me personally, it's been a process of self-development, of creating an interest for topics that initially were a bit outside, or I used to judge or think I wasn't good enough to even to study that field. But it was a point of not accepting those labels and going further than the information that was given to me. And then there's this whole process of you thinking then like as within so without. And if I hear something in news, let's say, and I don't know enough about it, I will accept anything that is given to me, and I'm not even question all the different perspectives that are missing. And that's one of the links that is missing, is our own relationship to it. How we consider or not what is being shared. And specifically when it comes to politics, there is this tendency of resisting and to think that politics is for politicians. But guess what? They haven't done a good job, and we haven't done a good job either, because we are accepting them to decide what is best and what is not best for us. So it's really a point of kind of deconstructing this whole idea that we may not have enough power, or that we need to have lots of knowledge, instead of looking at common sense, instead of looking at what is really needed in this world. And many of us know the answer. I mean, no one would like to live in a place where poverty rules, or where there's crime, or there's starvation. I mean, it's just things that we know by ourselves that wouldn't like to be in that position. So then when looking at the global scale, okay, how is that we can reach to that position of empowering each one of us to make sure that eventually there's a like global changes. But that can only happen if we have that window within us, if we kind of start understanding how things work, like even from an economics or politics perspective, or even education, things that we have resistance to, or even how history is taught to us. And there was an interesting hangout that we did a while ago, Marlen, in terms of conflict and how all these enemy constructs are so fed into us to almost believe that such separation is real. And there's so many things that we can really dig in and kind of start questioning what we have been told. And by kind of shifting that relationship, even the relationship towards other people or even amongst genders, we can change so many perspectives, and eventually that will change policies. It will change ideas, and new solutions will come forth based on that initial change that happens within. So, and all of this to say that all solutions are actually inclusive. So no matter our age, gender, where we're coming from, everyone can start applying those solutions straight away. And how big or how small the impact is, it really depends on us and the network we have.
Yes, so upon this, and basically noticing that as much as we can discuss, for example, an alternative system, a political proposal, or a new system, I mean, we've met wonderful people that are so committed to all of these alternative solutions. We have really been delighted in learning a lot from them and connecting with people around the world, focusing on the same principles into various solutions and proposals that they're placing out, that we have done also kind of our job in sharing that, expanding people into these ideas, whether it is in the system, alternative systems, outside of the systems. All of these are ideas that come up within individuals that see the need for this change. However, something that we also aimed at in the Hangouts is precisely looking at solutions. And a lot of the times we also ended up with, well, we need to educate ourselves or change the way that we think, how we understand the system, or stop blaming and taking responsibility. So we discussed a lot about these topics, ending up with those notes and those principles mentioned, but we do consider that there has been a gap in relation to really diving into that and going into the practicality of how can I live that? How can I start considering how to live in an honest manner or to take responsibility? What does that mean in relation to something that the government does or that corporation is doing? We tend to see the problem out there so much that we forget about ourselves, and that's how we saw that as much as we will leave the living income proposal as a proposal in itself there for anyone to access, to review it, to take it, to implement it, it is our contribution based on a particular time in which we saw this was necessary, that we saw it was a complement to basic income, and that we, over these 3 years, we have continued investigating as well in relation to not only aiming at the least, not going for quick solutions, but keep pushing the envelope, so to speak. And this implies that we want also our audience to take or continue taking those steps of, okay, so basic income is mainstream now, what comes next? I wouldn't want to remain at that level only, but I would like all of us to continue growing into now focusing more on the self as well, while continuing your endeavors of activism, basic income. All of that is very much necessary, but we do see that there is this needed emphasis on the self as well. And I would like also to, Joe, if you can also share a bit on your own process and what has transpired in your own life that has also become a point for you to consider, hey, we need to evolve, we need to expand.
Well, sure. I would say that there was one particular moment in my life during a really dark period where I was doing things that I once judged as bad, as immoral, as everything wrong with society. I found myself doing those things for survival, to make money, keep food in my stomach, and all of that stuff. And this was really hard for me because I had a lot of morality. I had a lot of judgments about what was right, what was wrong. I had done so many blogs and vlogs about the system and what was wrong with it. But speaking from, an outsider's point of view, speaking as somebody trying to tear down the system because I felt I was wronged by it. And it was only after I found myself in the shoes of the people I used to judge that something clicked, and within me a light came on. It's like, oh my God, here I am doing the very things that I judged the system for, that I judged corrupt people for. And I was so, well, it hit me hard in the beginning, but once I got past the shock of it, I realized that as long as we're judging, as long as we're holding on to our grudges and opinions and wanting to blame society, wanting to blame the government, wanting to blame the money system for our poverty, wanting to blame the elite for controlling everything, manipulating us, as long as we're holding on to that angle of it, we're always going to be on the losing side. Because why? We're always going to be putting the ability to change in the hands of other people. We're always going to be putting the responsibility in the hands of the system, the money system, the politicians, the greedy people, the bad apples, expecting them to change, expecting them to do the right thing because it's the right thing. And that is not going to happen. So within me, it was a transformation of first having to deal with the fact that I had so separated myself from everything. I was so egotistical and righteous about what I thought was right and what we should do, what we need to do. And it was only after I learned how to look at everything unconditionally, understanding that at any moment we could become the things that we most hate. We could find ourselves in a position where we are forced by the events of our lives to do things that are not cool. And when that happens, you don't want to have set yourself up so that you're already judging everything, you're already an enemy of everything. You want to be able to look at everything almost dispassionately, but not to say that you're not caring. Dispassionately within not being attached to one side being right only. You want to look at everything, be able to put it inside yourself, stand in the shoes of every single position. Because when you're able to do that, you can see how things really work without judgment, without the ego, without all that stuff that gets in the way. And when you can do that, you become very powerful. You become very directive. And that was how I pulled myself up. Working within that system, within that company, I was able to turn things around, and that was proof right there in the pudding that as long as you're against the system, against whatever, you're always going to make yourself the loser.
Thank you very much for sharing that, because we have to also remind ourselves that we are not people that are being paid to create certain media or are being paid to be part of a particular movement. Here we are all individuals, and the rest of the group that cannot be today here, but we are all people around the world that has come up together because we decided that there's a bunch of things that we are dissatisfied with in the world, and all of us, I think, we can relate to being antagonists of our reality and against politics. I myself define myself as a loathing politics person and hating all things economics. So this has been a process, as Joana was mentioning before, where we pushed ourselves to investigate things, to be part of the solutions, but to now also focus on this process that many times goes unnoticed. When we propose a particular system outside a new structure, say basic income or any other solution out there, sometimes we forget the self, the change that needs to happen at an individual level as well, to be able to adopt, embrace, become, embody the new principles that such new solutions entail. So Cerise, over the time as well, you also being a psychologist, what is your perspective on this much needed approach and even support to assist ourselves in being able to stand in a new system or conceive a new proposal, a new solution for humanity, and the much needed look within ourselves as well?
Well, let me first start off by saying that I absolutely agree with everything that's been said up until this point. And I'd like to bring in the dimension that regardless of what system is implemented, whether it is basic income, whether it is a different form of capitalism, socialism, communism, whatever it is, we still have to deal with human nature. And human nature is not necessarily something that cannot be changed. Human nature is who we are now and how we're living now and what we are accepting and allowing within ourselves right now in this moment. So without changing that human nature, without changing that who we are in this moment, in what we are creating, we are simply going to be recreating the same things over and over and over again. So the real question is, will we change? And in so doing, will the world change with us? And there I see is the point that has been lacking in proposals, is that human element, because we are the creators of the world system. If within us there are flaws, and if within us there is greed and judgment and comparison and moralities, then that is going to be reflected in the system that we create, regardless of whatever high principles it may stand by. Because one thing that you can see everywhere in the world, everywhere in your life, is that no matter what you try, there is some part of you that is unresolved, say judgment or resentment or jealousy, that is going to filter through into whatever it is that you're creating. So who we are must be clear. We must stand clear within ourselves, and then from that point create a new system and be able to truly express the principles that we choose to live by.
It is certainly that missing link, that missing aspect, when we only believe that, hey, if we create this new structure, everything will work fine. No, because the system is more like an externalization of the choices or lack thereof, or by default made by a few, that we've accepted and allowed as the way the world works and how everything functions in the system. And I think this is also something that we will be continuing to discuss in our new platform as well, in relation to what happened in Switzerland and how people's fears and reactions to this idea of basic income could have also affected in the outcome of it. So there is that precise human element that needs to be addressed, that needs to be deconstructed in order for all of us to start opening up our considerations for how can we bring forth change in a sustainable manner, and not only in the form of a system that you can vote on, but to start living it that as ourselves. Joana, would you like to add perspective?
Yeah, well, everything that has been shared, it really resonates with me, with my own process, my own experiences. And something else that also I see as part of who we are is a lot to do with our emotions, about how we feel in relation to what is said to us, about what we read, especially in the news. When we react, we feel anger, or we feel helplessness, or sometimes we feel happiness, and all these ups and downs, how that kind of, we accept that to define us and to even make us stay more in the bed because we don't want to face the day, or we want to avoid certain things. And all of that actually is a point of powerlessness that we accepted. And working through these emotions to understand how we are easily manipulated by the words that we hear. And it's on purpose. And we have to accept the fact that so far it has been on purpose, but we decide how we get affected by that sort of information. And what also, and as Cerise was saying, in terms of us standing as an example of how we would like this world to be, and that is also going to come out in the words we speak, in how we speak. So we don't want to speak in a point of fear or of anger, of kind of projecting our own problems, but it is a process of working first our own problems and not projecting them outside. And for those who study history, you'll see that many of the decisions that have been taken thus far are very much based on personal issues that people have, and they simply project onto the divide and conquer because they don't want to face themselves. And we do that also in our lives. How much money became this projection of power because we feel powerless in other areas of our lives, like either family or relationships. So all of this, there's so much to explore. But the good news is that by starting with self, we have that platform to work. It's like something that we bring onto us, and it's like, yes, let me investigate. What memory is making me feel this way? And there's a lot of psychology into it, but are things that we are familiar. We are familiar with our own experiences, and each one is individually responsible for our own lives. So it's quite an empowering process to then see something outside, either a conflict, which is something that I could relate to, and then see how I also participate in that in my own relationships. And if I really want to stand as something out there, to stand as like to support something outside, then I must apply that in my own life. Otherwise, it's fake. It's not. I'm not becoming that. So it's really shifting. Instead of us waiting for things to happen, it's like, okay, now I'm changing my own relationship to this. Now I can actually see something else, and I can participate differently. And finally, something else that I could relate in this process is the point of recognizing my own mistakes, recognizing what I have accepted either outside or inside, and be able to forgive. And this is really important even in the world outside. We see so much resentment, so much anger, and this forgiveness that has been placed as something out there instead of us, starting with ourselves, but then forgiving things that have been done and move on and create things differently. And coming back to the media became a very judgmental tool. And I think that a lot of news don't come out or don't make public or transparent because we became these judgments of everybody else's actions and how easy it is to point fingers. But we haven't actually, and as Joe was saying, placing ourselves in the shoes of those that commit certain acts to understand them, forgive them, and let's not make those same mistakes again. So, I mean, there's a lot to discuss on this, which we're going to cover in Politics of Self, but these are certain principles that if we start applying them in our own lives, then the world will certainly change. That's my perspective on that.
Absolutely, and these are all views that have been coming through in Politics of Self series in this channel. Please check it out, and we will be continuing with that series in our new platform that will be expanded not only to politics but to many other topics. We will continue connecting with people and approaching their alternative solutions proposals precisely from this more personal aspect that definitely gives us a lot to learn from any other human that decides to stand up to create something for the benefit of themselves, their community, the system. All of that is something very valuable for all of us that are continually bombarded with ideas that everything is going to the drain and there's no solutions. We are here to continue doing just that, but expanding more into the self, our personal lives, our individual participation, and expanding our awareness as well as to what extent everything that is out there is our own reflection, as has been mentioned. So we're about to wrap up this hangout. I would like to take the time also to thank to everyone that has watched, followed us, supported us throughout these years and even before that as well, because we have been working on various proposals, solutions, and Living Income is a chapter of our movement. We will continue. We will be letting all of you know where to start following us and subscribing. We will continue creating material in the form of media precisely to spread these considerations that we see are very much needed out there, and as well as thanking all of the guests, all of the people that I've met and talked to, wonderful people. I am definitely grateful to have had that opportunity to discuss that, and everyone as part of the basic income movement that I also got to interview and to understand more in the relationship of different countries and the various movements, activists. All of them have really also led us to consider this new phase, to do something that we see is not so much done or currently available in the form of media. And this will be then our continuation as a group. Guys, any last words that you would like to share?
Marlen, there's one person you forgot to thank that I think we need to address right now, and her name is Marlen, and she has been spearheading the LIG Hangouts for the past 3 and up years. She has been a pillar of inspiration for myself, and I'm sure many who have been part of this movement and others. So thank you very much, Marlen, for everything that you have done and will continue to do. We definitely look forward to what we're going to be opening up.
Absolutely, and thank you to everyone that has been part of it, because without guests also Hangouts cannot really happen. So and by all means, inspiring people to do this. We are regular people. We are now, we don't have any particular tags of being experts on things. We are here to learn. We're here to discuss, to continue opening up, to connect with people. That is invaluable in essence, and I am also thankful for having had this opportunity. And we will continue. So to everyone watching, thank you very much for watching, and keep an eye on the links that we will be placed once that we have everything set and ready in our new platform, where you will be able to continue watching Politics of Self as well as new series, new material, because we saw that this channel was getting a little bit like a small shoe that couldn't fit so many topics and aspects that we want to cover. So this is a moment for evolving while continuing to keep an eye on how things are developing in the basic income realm and world, and we will be continuing discussing probably. Joana, any last words?
Well, just to say that I look forward to working with you all and to the new project, so stay tuned.
Cerise?
Well, I have nothing further to add except to say that we are all grateful for everyone who's walked this process, and especially to you, Marlen, who has, as Joe said, been the spearhead. So we are all looking forward to and are quite excited about the new platform and the new movement heading forward. And we hope to see everyone there and more.
Thank you all, and thanks to you, the viewer. Keep an eye on us, and thank you for everything, and see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.